Welcome back to another UNC football recruiting podcast here on TarHeelIllustrated.com. And if you're checking us out on our YouTube channel, Tar Heel Illustrated, THI publisher Andrew Jones, and joining me is our director of football recruiting, Miss Deana King. And Deana, today's topic, no specific players, but we're going to talk about a specific region of the state of North Carolina. You and I have been doing these for a long time, and in the last year or so, we've started to talk about more and more kids from the western part of North Carolina, which for a while was an area that the program had very little success getting kids. And even right now, if you look at the current roster, there's only a few kids from the western part of the state. And just for the sake of understanding here, we're excluding Charlotte as the western part of the state. We're talking about more Winston-Salem West, out toward Asheville, that kind of thing, and Cleveland County, an area that I know that you talk about often, and you've seen a lot of kids from that region many, many times over the years. So basically, this is an important area for this program to recruit. If Mac is going to fully build that fence around the state and lock in guys from the mountains to the ocean and everything in between, he's got to get the western kids. And everything that we've seen in the last 16 months or so suggests that they are making progress in the western part of the state.
That area is commonly known because it's my area, west of I-77. You of course exclude Charlotte because I-77 comes right through Charlotte, but typically you're thinking I-77 west, the area of Hickory, Morganton, Asheville, down to the Shelby area. So yes, we've seen more offers. We've seen UNC make an effort. When Mac first got here, he was putting a coach in every high school in North Carolina, and it's paying off.
Absolutely. And specifically, you said the Shelby. That's an area where when Dax Hallfield committed to Virginia Tech, that was one of those moments where a lot of people who really follow this and understand regions of the state said, like, Carolina or Larry's never going to get, or whoever at Carolina's never going to get kids from that area ever again. But things are changing. It's not just that they're offering kids, but you talk to all of these kids. What they say about the program is different now than what they were saying before. I know that things are different in Carolina right now, obviously under Mac, they were in the last couple of years, the previous regime. But there's clearly an interest level across the board that even when things were going pretty well for the previous staff, they still weren't resonating that great in that area and other areas out west. What are you hearing from kids in that region now that you weren't even hearing back when Carolina was 11-3 in 2015? And they had a couple of good classes during that stretch, but they just weren't bringing a lot of kids in from that region.
I think it starts when Sam Howell committed to UNC and Coach Brown. He was like the state player of the year, and it multiplied there. When you can get a kid like that who was a national four-star player to commit to his home school and then start recruiting the other players. And it was like maybe a snowball. And we saw it in the class last year, the 2020 class. A lot of the top in-state school players stayed in state. Des Esmond, Miles Murphy, Jacarius Conley. So now kids want to play. There's so many like 7-on-7s and clubs 7-on-7 teams, and all these kids bond and they want to play with their buddies. And Cleveland County, they've had so many players go D1 and play at the NFL level. And during this era, few years ago, Carolina really was, although it's a really big Carolina following in those areas, they just wasn't getting the players. And, for whatever reason, with Shelby being right so close to the South Carolina border, you had South Carolina and Clemson right there, approximately more closer than the Chapel Hill area. And then you always had the lure of the SEC, Atlanta, Georgia. Athens, Georgia is not that far, but it's changing. You can see what Mac has offered. He's got a few commits from that area now, and he's put out some offers to the kids, and the kids are really responding to it.
I'm going to call East Surrey far enough west that Stephen Gosnell and Jefferson Boaz count as well. Staying in Cleveland County in the class of 21, kind of take us into 21 with the Cleveland County area, and also 22. I know you've talked to a few kids from that area lately. Who are some kids right now Carolina fans need to kind of zero in on that? If they could get a couple more from that area, it'll eliminate this whole question about that part of the state once and for all, at least with the current regime.
Well, I'm going to still consider Kobe Paysor out of Kings Mountain as a Kings Mountain, Cleveland County guy, even though he has moved across the border to play at Gaffney in South Carolina for his senior season. So that was a big get, and they recruited Damian Wilson, the linebacker there for Kings Mountain too.
And let me interrupt. And I think they could have gotten him had maybe they not landed somebody else prior. So that would have been another one of these kids that said, yeah, I'm all in to be a Tar Heel. It just, look, you can't bring in 100 kids a year. You can only bring in up to 25. And this class was going to be 21, then 20. Now with the COVID stuff and the year not counting, we're not sure exactly how many more they'll take. So that's another one that they want to get. And he's a really good player.
In that case, I believe for him, he might have kind of waited too long. And that's one of the bad things about kids waiting. Spots fill up. He really liked UNC. So they got Power Eccles. They got Gabe Stevens. So and then they got Rah. So they got 3 good linebacker prospects in this upcoming class. But in 2022, they gave out some early offers to 2 Shelby teammates, and Malachi Hamrick and Santana Hopper both on that defensive line. Even though Hamrick is more going to be a hybrid type outside linebacker, they offered them really early, and both of them have been given very positive feedback for UNC, because I believe UNC might have been one of Hamrick's first offers.
And Hopper is the cousin of Tyron Hopper, and that obviously helps, but he's still from that area, so it still counts. And that's what I think is going to be really interesting. Right now, like I said, there's only a handful of kids on the roster from that region. But in 2 years from now, 3 years from now, there might be 12. And there's enough talent out there that if there's 12, that's pretty good.
Well, there's the Asheville area. Asheville always has some good prospects. I mean, and those guys have ventured outside the state a lot of times, and we're like, okay, why did Cresden Butler, why did he go out of state? The kid that his name escapes me now. He was a really good running back at Asheville. He's at South Carolina. Was a great running back for Asheville High. Talent's there. Just need to make a better concentrated effort. I think under Mac and his current staff, they are doing that. One name that always kind of pops up in that area is Coach Gillespie. He's making a lot of inroads in the right outside the Charlotte area. So I'm going to consider the Gaston County, the Cleveland, Lincoln, up that way. Coach Gillespie is doing a really good recruiting job for the Tar Heels.
Now, I guess an easy explanation, and it's a pretty good explanation to be honest with you, you hit on it a little bit earlier. The SEC comes in and poaches that area a lot. Tennessee's had a lot of success in the western part of the state, and that goes back decades, to be honest with you. The more that this program looks like an SEC program, as far as results, as far as panache, as far as glitz, as far as just being the cool place to be. Max talked about that a lot of times. As far as the bells and whistles in the program with the facilities and everything, the more it looks like an SEC program, do you think that also is going to be something that will give the kids a reason to think, I don't have to go to Knoxville. I can go to Chapel Hill and have a very similar or even better experience.
But I'll go back to my first point. That player was Rico Dowdell.
Rico Dowdell,
yeah. Really good year for South Carolina. But, yeah, you look at the Asheville and the Smoky Mountain, Western North Carolina. Knoxville is closer than Chapel Hill. Athens is closer than Chapel Hill. Atlanta is closer than Chapel Hill. So you got some SEC schools that are closer to that area than the Triangle area. So, there's a lot of diehard UNC fans in that area. I've got some close personal friends up there, and that they are bleed UNC, and they're like, we got some good players. They kind of feel often overlooked, kind of like the kids and the coaches east of 95. We see that little. It's like everything in the middle between I-77 and 95 is who UNC, the perception is who they look at. They don't want to look at kids outside that realm, and that's changing under Coach Brown.
Coach Tommy Thigpen recruits the Charlotte area. Can you kind of, where does his map go as far as out west? I know you mentioned Gillespie, but I'm just, for our listeners, for people watching, help them kind of understand a little bit more about that recruiting map.
I honestly think Coach Thigpen, he is the Charlotte. That's his main region. And if there's an elite prospect, I believe Mac uses all of his resources. He'll put Bateman on them, and he'll put Thigpen because, Thigpen, kind of like Dre Bly, Thigpen's got the pedigree. He played for Mac. He knows the Carolina system. He's coached at some of the top programs in the nation. So he knows. When Mac brought him back on the staff, I was like, he finally brought the guy that was recruiting against North Carolina at Auburn and the Tennessees. Tommy was getting players from North Carolina to go to Auburn and Tennessee. So it was a good move to bring Tommy back.
Yeah, I was just going to say, he got a lot of Western Carolina kids go to those two schools. So that's pretty big. Also, for people who are trying to draw a line in their mind, how far west of Charlotte do you consider the line for the western part of the state? Because Charlotte's so different. I know a lot of people might say, well, Charlotte's western part of the state naturally, but from a recruiting perspective, for you, when you're drawing lines and partitioning off this kid's that region, this kid's that region, this kid's that region, where does your line begin west of Charlotte?
Well, there's a few areas I consider, like where I live to Hickory, maybe the foothills. That's the term used up here in my area. And then west of Hickory is pretty much western North Carolina. I know when Asheville paper, they do their high school all WNC team, it's pretty much Asheville and to Murphy in that region. So there's a big region there. People forget that, you get to Asheville, you go about another hour and a half, and that's Murphy. You still got a long ways and some talent there that has come out of Murphy. And with you spoke about Tennessee, the Smoky Mountain Conference, two of their best players that ever played, and probably two players totally in North Carolina come out of that conference at Swain County, and Heath Schuler that played for Tennessee and the Redskins and the Saints. And then you had the Carl Pickens, who was at Murphy High School and went to Tennessee and had a great NFL career. So there's talent. Leonard Little at Asheville, there's a lot of talent up there. So
Super Bowl champion. Yeah, and Schuler also spent some time in Congress. Hickory, Rico Walker's a class 2023 kid. I know you've already talked to. We've run some stuff on him over the last couple of months. Hickory and Statesville, So I'm trying to visualize here, and I've driven through there, Hickory, Statesville area. Is that kind of like, okay, when I hit Hickory and Statesville, these are all Western kids. And I understand the map in general, but I'm talking from a recruiting perspective. So next time I drive there, when I go to that area, I say, okay, this is that area. These are the kids that used to not go to Carolina, but maybe more of them are interested now.
Well,
I'm having some fun with you on that too.
Yeah, well, one of the all-time great running backs from Morganton, Leon Johnson.
Yep.
You know, Morganton is between Hickory and Asheville. And one fact about Leon Johnson, that's Chaz Surratt's cousin. So that's a kind of cool fact. That's kind of why Chaz wore the number 12. Leon wore 12. So, you know, that area is growing for UNC, and it just took some effort for the coaches. I mean, it kind of got neglected, I feel. I mean, I hate to say that, but
well, you know what? It's okay to say that. It's okay to say that because it's true, and we're far enough detached from, and they had their reasons. They recruited Georgia hard. They recruited Northern Florida hard. They recruited the D.C. area very hard, especially with Papuchis because he's from Maryland. So you've got to figure out where you're going to concentrate. And maybe they just figured, you know what, the amount of resources we would have to use to see that wide range area to get the few kids that are there isn't worth it. Let's go ahead and spend our time here. It's a judgment call a staff has to make. And this staff, they're not spending much time in Florida. I mean, they're Atlanta to D.C., and in a lot of ways, they're right now like North Carolina and Virginia with pockets of South Carolina. They're really hitting those areas hard. So get those kids out there because there are plenty of them, as you noted. And there will continue to be plenty of them. And I think looking ahead, it's going to be very interesting to see how many more kids, the numbers that they bring in from that part of the state, because you could win a lot of football games adding kids from the western part of North Carolina to your roster.
Well, Andrew, I don't know if you have done the Murphy to Manio tour. I have.
No.
It's Murphy's a good 3.5, 4 hours from my house, and there's a really good offensive lineman down there at Murphy and Yusef Mulgerby, and he's still a big target for the Tar Heels, and they've made him pretty much a big target.
Yeah.
And he's sitting right there in the middle. Tennessee, Georgia, Clemson are all closer than UNC, and he's made their Carolina's one of his top schools, and so there's an effort. There's an increased effort, and I know the high school coaches around the state have already been raving about how Mac has come, and if Mac hasn't made it to the high school, Phil Longo has. I mean, here at my local school at Starmount, my coach calls like, Coach Longo came up here, and I'm like, oh, that's awesome, because, I can't remember when a Carolina football assistant had been at Starmount, my school, and I'm gonna throw my age out. I was actually, the last time I remember, I believe it was when I was in high school, and Denny Marson came to Starmount, and I do you remember Coach Marson? I'm trying to think if it was Dick Crum, if he was under Dick Crum, because that was in the late 80s.
It was in that transitional period between Crum and Mac. So, yeah. This is good stuff. I think this is an important thing. Recruiting podcasts aren't always about this kid, that kid, and another kid. This is something Carolina fans need to watch. Those who are interested in recruiting. I know it's been a topic of discussion. I think it's more of one, and we definitely, you and I have been talking about hitting on it in the podcast for a while. We just kind of wanted to wait and allow things to kind of play out a little bit more. So I think it's good stuff, and certainly you're well positioned out there, Miss King, to be on top of it.
I'm lucky. I'm near an interstate, so I can be in Asheville in 2 hours. I can be in Charlotte in an hour. I can go up north towards Roanoke in less than 2 hours, and I can be in Chapel Hill in 2 hours. So I'm at a good place in the western part of the state to go when needed and everything. And it's just with these camp series that we're having with VTO, I think I'm going to be able to meet more kids and may see some kids that might have been overlooked. We're heading up to Asheville as we speak on the 27th and planning to have a showcase camp up there for those kids. And I expect a good turnout because we've had a lot of positive feedback from the coaches. And with this dead period that come out, again, coaches can't go to the Division I. Coaches cannot go to anything, and these camps are it's for everybody, but I think it's helping more the D2 coaches because we've got D2 coaches wanting to come to this, and so anything to help the kids and it's just, I think it's a great idea, and I'm looking forward to going to all of them.
If you haven't been on Tar Heel Illustrated, go check out our site, tarheelillustrated.com. Right now, we're offering an amazing special, 60 days for free. Just go there, sign up. You have complete access to all of our premium content. We do hit recruiting hard. We cover both the football and basketball team very hard. Lots of premium content on there. The message boards, we interact regularly with our subscribers on the message boards. So 60 days for free. Give you a nice, healthy sample of what we do. And if you like it, you stick around and you sign up, and you get a 1-year membership at half price. And on top of that, get a free t-shirt from BreakingT.com. Go ahead and click like if you like this video. Hit the notification bell so you get updates every time we upload videos, which we do frequently. She's Deana King. I'm Andrew Jones. Thanks for stopping by.